a wonderful thread on Ukraine posted by Kaneko the Great on Twitter today that you need to see, so I thought I would share it with you here as well. I apologize in advance if I mispronounce any of the Ukrainian terms or names, but after watching, please follow at Kaneko the Great on Twitter. 40 Democrats labeled Ukraine's Azov Battalion a terrorist organization in 2019. They compared them to ISIS and blamed them for radicalizing New Zealand's Christchurch shooter. Then they sent them billions in weapons in 2022. The Azov Battalion is a well-known ultra-nationalist militia organization in Ukraine that openly welcomes neo-Nazis into its ranks. The United Nations has chronicled human rights abuses and incidents of torture in this group's relatively short history. The Christchurch shooter claimed he had trained with the Azov Battalion in Ukraine, and he routinely wore a neo-Nazi symbol associated with them. The link between Azov and acts of terror in America is clear. The Azov Battalion was founded by Andrei Beletsky, an avowed white supremacist who once said that Ukraine's national purpose was to lead the white races of the world in a final crusade against Semite-led subhuman. A photo of the Azov Battalion, a regiment of the National Guard of Ukraine, with a NATO flag, an Azov flag, and a Nazi flag. The emblem of the Azov Battalion combines the Nazi black sun and the wolf's angel symbol used by the Nazi Waffen. Ukraine's neo-Nazi Azov Battalion holds up a photograph of Adolf Hitler. A NATO instructor teaches Azov Battalion members how to use newly delivered grenade launchers paid for by American taxpayers. A 2016 OSCE report found the Azov Battalion responsible for mass executions, torture, and rape of civilians and prisoners. The corporate media only covers one side of the story, but both sides are guilty of war crimes. Today's war in Ukraine cannot be understood without first understanding the U.S. government's role in Ukraine's 2014 maiden coup. In 2013, Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych rejected a $17 billion IMF loan and EU association agreement. In response, John McCain and Victoria Nuland worked with neo-Nazis like the leader of Svoboda, Ola Trvanabach, to escalate the violence and overthrow Yankovic. According to CNN, a 2012 European Parliament resolution condemned the main, but by no means most extreme, ultra-right party Svoboda as racist, anti-Semitic, and xenophobic. Every January 1st, Svoboda, which was called the Social National Party until 2004, marches through the streets of Ukraine, holding torches to honor the birth of Nazi collaborator Stefan Bandera. In 2013, Senator John McCain appeared on stage in Maidan Square, where he stood shoulder to shoulder with Svoboda leader Oleg Tchernybok and protested the elected government of Ukraine. Victoria Nuland was caught on a leaked phone call planning Ukraine's new government. Ukraine is a divided nation, and many of the protesters were organic. However, Western NGOs such as the National Endowment for Democracy, NED, an infamous CIA cutout, also funded, trained, and bussed in activists, journalists, and protesters to fan the flames. The violence escalated with protesters using bats, metal bars, and bulldozers to attack the government. On February 20th, unidentified snipers fired into the crowds, killing people on all sides, in an event known as the Maidan Massacre. The Maidan Massacre trial and investigation produced overwhelming evidence that Maidan protesters were massacred by snipers at Maidan-controlled buildings rather than by government snipers. Nevertheless, armed mobs took over the Ukrainian government, leading to the Russian annexation of Crimea and the civil war in Donbass, killing an estimated 14,000 people since 2014. The newly formed government accepted the IMF loan. If you truly want to understand how corrupt this foreign aid is, here's another one of my articles on how the Ukrainian billionaire oligarch Ihor Kolomoisky funded Hunter Biden, Vladimir Zelensky, and the neo-Nazi Azov Battalion. Many people don't know that the shelling in Donbass increased 9 days before Russia invaded Ukraine. If the first casualty of war is truth, then it should follow that the first battle between Russia and Ukraine was also won with lies. A diplomatic solution with Russia might have involved something as simple as demilitarizing the Donbass and a signed treaty promising Ukraine would never join NATO, but the U.S. political establishment wanted this proxy war with nuclear-armed Russia, so they created it. The same discredited neoconservative and neoliberal establishment that lied about Iraq, Afghanistan, and Libya are now lying about Russia and Ukraine. Every modern American war has turned stable countries into hotbeds of chaos, corruption, and death. Support the innocent people of Ukraine and Russia, but do not support the corrupt governments that created this bloodshed. Do not support the military-industrial complex, the war propaganda machine, and the useful idiots lobbying for World War III. This isn't a story of good versus evil. It's a story of corrupt governments ruthlessly fighting for competing self-interest while ordinary citizens suffer the consequences. The world should be calling for peace and diplomacy. Hopefully this helps all of the craziness make sense to you. And thank you so much to Kaneko the Great for putting this together. If you have a moment, please follow his Substack at kanekoa.substack.com. Thanks for listening.